And Suba, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Trudy. As always, she is the best at welcoming folks onto our Tuesday Explorers. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Suba Sati, and I'm a volunteer community ambassador with ARP here in Northern Virginia. From our earliest beginnings, ARP has championed lifelong learning. That's why ARP Virginia is thrilled to bring you our 5th year of Tuesday Explorers, a lifelong learning program offered every Tuesday from January through the end of May now at 3 o'clock Eastern Time for curious explorers. For more than 60 years, AARP has been a wise friend and fierce defender, helping individuals to ensure that their money, health, and happiness live as long as they do. AARP has earned a reputation as a wise friend and fierce defender through trusted information, tools, and advocacy designed to protect the health and financial security of older Americans and empower them to choose how they live as they age. By promising to act as a wise friend and fierce defender, AARP is helping people who are 50 plus and their families feel confident, in control, and secure as they age. As a wise friend in your corner, AARP helps you protect yourself and your loved ones from fraud, get healthy and stay healthy, care for loved ones, make connections, plan a trip, learn new technologies, attend a class, and have fun and while learning like we're doing today with our Tuesday Explorers program. I hope you will continue to take advantage of these opportunities and more. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day for the virtual tour of the National Museum of the Marine Corps. Kevin O'Keefe served as a senior executive at the U.S. Department of State from 2006 to 2023. Managing billions in security sector assistance and coordinating with the Department of Defense. He previously directed the Office of Plans, Policy, and Analysis, overseeing security sector assistance and implementing the Global Security Contingency Fund. Before joining the State Department, he worked at Battelle Memorial Institute Office of Homeland Security, developing technology solutions for U.S. government clients. He served 26 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, commanding infantry units and serving in various operational staff roles. Kevin, thank you for your service as a fellow veteran, and I yield the floor to you.
Okay, well, thanks for the introduction. And I am a proud member of AARP Virginia. Okay, well, thank you for that introduction as well. So hopefully I'm going to try to give you an introduction of one of our new galleries, Gallery 13. But let me start out with a quote. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and success of liberty. President John F. Kennedy, inaugural address, January 20th, 1961. So again, I'm going to give you an overview of the National Marine Corps Museum's Gallery 13, Forward Deployed, which covers the period 1980s and 1990s. So as noted in this map, the world is essentially divided between the US and USSR spheres of influence. It is represented by the Soviet and American chess pawns, as you see as you walk into the gallery, represents this. The US and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization are most concerned with the Soviet attack into Western Europe. The Marine Corps is assigned the mission to protect NATO's strategic left flank in Norway. Marines are deemed most capable for this mission since they are well suited to amphibious operations and have the equipment to move quickly through the Norwegian fjords. Marines conduct a number of training exercises with the Norwegian military in Arctic conditions and have pre-positioned in Norway vehicles, heavy equipment, and ammunition to rapidly respond to a Soviet attack. The Marine Corps also plays a key role in the development of the Rapid Deployment Joint Task Force, a multi-service organization created to ensure a flexible, timely military response around the world when needed. To support this concept, the maritime pre-positioning ship concept is developed to enhance the capability by pre-staging equipment needed for combat in the vicinity of designated area of operations, which reduces the response time as Marines travel by air to link up with these assets. It is the third world, the so-called low-intensity conflict area and arena, where we are most likely to be committed in this decade. General Alfred Gray, 29th Commandant of the Marine Corps. During the 1980s and 90s, the two superpowers do not face off against each other directly. Neither wants to risk nuclear war. Instead, they pursue war by proxy throughout the developing world. Each seeks to gain an advantage by exploiting unstable conditions in these client states to achieve their own goals or to cause their foe the most trouble. Proxies are provided money and guns and sometimes advisors on the ground. Throughout the 1980s, Marines find themselves in conflicts in the Middle East and the Caribbean while serving as advisors in direct combat. An example of a proxy war is the support that the U.S. gave to the Mujahideen as they fought Russian occupation in Afghanistan. An unanticipated consequence of that proxy war support was the rise of the Taliban and al-Qaeda within Afghanistan after the Russian withdrawal. Regrettably, the end of the Cold War heralded not the hoped-for era of peace, but rather a troubling age characterized by global disorder. General Charles Krulak, Commandant of the Marine Corps. In the 1980s, Marines responded to a variety of crises, most notably in Grenada, Lebanon, and combating emerging terrorism. Meanwhile, the Corps develops its concept of maneuver warfare, which uses speed and firepower to overwhelm enemy force. In the 1990s, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Charles Krulak, advances the idea of what he calls three-block war to explain battlefield realities in an era of failed and failing nation states. Not only is the Marine Corps operating in complex environments and executing a range of missions, including humanitarian aid and peacekeeping alongside mid-intensity conflict, it is also operating in an atmosphere of pervasive media coverage. Krulak perceives the need to invest heavily in the human dimension of warfare. This is done to ensure that even the lowest level Marine leaders are fully developed and prepared to operate effectively to contribute to the achievement of strategic objectives in this environment of ever-increasing scrutiny. This gives the actions of even most junior Marines a degree of strategic impact that no previous battlefield did. Krulak stresses three developmental priorities. First is the instillment of Marine Corps enduring ethos, with an emphasis on building character, which enabled junior Marine leaders to appropriately address what Krulak describes as the moral quandaries common to the battlefield. Second is providing quality professional military education, which sustains the growth of technical and tactical proficiency and mental and physical toughness. Finally, the Marine Corps must provide examples of quality leadership to inspire Marines to rise to the same great heights as those who set the highest standards of combat leadership throughout Marine Corps history. So Beirut, Lebanon, 1982-94. So in 1975, civil war begins between several factions, Christian, Sunni, Shia. In July 1980, Bashir Gamayel unites all Christian militias under Lebanese forces. Summer of 2 years later, in 1982, Israel invades Lebanon in response to the Palestine Liberation Organization attacks into Israel. 23rd of August that year in 1982, Bashir Gamayel is elected president. A month later, 14 September, he is assassinated. So again, this is from 1982-94, an example of a proxy war. Okay, Lebanese Muslim factions are supported by Iran, which again, in turn, is supported by Russia. So again, 29 August 1982, Marines land to assist the evacuation of the Palestine Liberation Organization in Beirut as part of a brokered PLO Israeli ceasefire. They then depart on 10 September. This is what we call an interpositional force. We're part of a multinational task force that is in between these warring factions. September of that year, again, a Marine amphibious unit joins the French and Italian troops in the multinational force peacekeeping mission. April of the next year, 1983, a large car bomb explodes at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. So Marines have very restrictive rules of engagement to avoid incidents that might draw the U.S. into open conflict with one of the opposing factions. Marines are supposed to keep their weapons unloaded and only return fire in self-defense. As one Lance Corporal quoted during this deployment to Lebanon, quote, "In boot camp, they never taught us to keep the peace." So here you see a picture of the Marine barracks. So on 23rd October 1983, a suicide truck bomb with over 12,000 pounds of explosives destroys Battalion Landing Team 1-8's headquarters at Beirut International Airport. I believe the Battalion Landing Team commander was operationally constrained as he could only place his Marines in one building at the airport, coupled again with very restricted rules of engagement as mentioned earlier. During this time here, over 220 Marines, 18 sailors, and 3 soldiers were killed in the blast, and another 70 wounded as well on that. November 1983, 2-4 Marine Amphibious Unit is relieved by 2-2 Marine Amphibious Unit. And then February the next year, 1984, the Marines withdraw from Lebanon, ending U.S. presence. So Operation Urgent Fury, Grenada, another proxy war. Grenada was supported by the Cubans, which in turn were supported by Moscow as well. So on October 1983, in a coup, the Grenadian prime minister and 2 cabinet members are killed and the governor detained. 25 October 1983, President Reagan orders an invasion of Grenada to free U.S. medical students and restore peace. It is what we call a coup de main operation, which is French for a blow with the hand, a swift attack that relies on speed and surprise to accomplish its objectives in a single blow. During Operation Urgent Fury, U.S. Marines from the 22nd Marine Amphibious Unit, originally headed to relieve 2-4 Marine Amphibious Unit Lebanon, were diverted to Grenada. In over 3 days, the governor was rescued and 564 U.S. medical students evacuated. On November 2nd, 2-2 Marine Amphibious Unit reembarks and sails to Lebanon to relieve 2-4 Marine Amphibious Unit in Beirut. So again, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time, General John Vasey, U.S. Army, chairman said, quote, "We have 2 companies of Marines running rampant all over the northern half of the island and 3 Army regiments pinned down in the southwestern corner, doing nothing. What the hell is going on?" Again, that's from the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. So this basically led to significant reorganization and legislation in 1986, considered the Goldwater-Nichols Act. The Grenada operation was plagued with interoperability problems. The Army cannot radio link with the Marines. Marines and the Army cannot radio link with the Air Force. Constant interference from military leaders at the Pentagon. So this act, the Goldwater-Nichols Act, makes the most sweeping changes to Department of Defense since the department was established by reworking the command structure of the U.S. military. It streamlines the military chain of command, which will now run from the president through the Secretary of Defense directly to the combatant commanders, bypassing the service chiefs. The service chiefs are assigned an advisory role and are given primary responsibility for organizing, training, and equipping personnel for use by the combatant commanders. This move toward interoperability will become an important factor during Operation Desert Shield, and Desert Storm. So back to Grenada. As the Rangers fought for control of the Salinas area, a Marine Cobra helicopter was dispatched to provide close air support to them. Under the direction from Army forward air controllers, the gunships engaged Grenadian forces. After 4 attack runs, one Cobra gunship, manned by Captain Timothy Howard and his co-pilot gunner Jeb Siegel, was shot down by anti-aircraft fire. Both crewmen survived the crash, although Captain Howard was seriously wounded. As Grenadian troops closed in on the downed pilots, the other Cobra gunship strafed them with 20mm cannon and 2.7-inch rockets. This suppressed the Grenadian troops long enough for the CH-46 medevac helicopter to land and rescue Captain Howard, although his co-pilot, Captain Siegel, was killed, basically executed by Grenadian troops. Captain Siegel later was awarded the Navy Cross posthumously. As the CH-46 medevac helicopter lifted off with the wounded pilot aboard, the remaining gunship, which at this point was out of ammunition, made a final gun run and was shot down and crashed into the sea, killing both Major Pat Giguere and First Lieutenant Jeff Sharver, who would each be awarded the Silver Star posthumously. The sole surviving Cobra pilot, Captain Timothy Howard, was awarded a Silver Star along with the CH-46 medevac crew members. Told he would never walk again and with a near useless arm, Captain Howard was recovering in the hospital when he was visited by the then Secretary of the Navy, John Lehman, and asked what he wanted to do. Howard replied, "I want to continue being a Marine." Lehman gave him permission to remain in the Corps. During his period after this, Howard never scored lower than what we call a first-class physical fitness test score. He would retire in 2003 as Colonel Tim Howard. This is the first time a severely wounded Marine was allowed to remain on active duty. We have many examples in the last 20 years of that as well. So in 2008, a group of squadron veterans returns to the island to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Operation Urgent Fury. A gentleman walks up and says, "Hey, my father-in-law owns a junkyard, and I think I have a piece of your helicopter there." After confirming the wreck's authenticity was the tail boom from Howard's Cobra. It was returned to the Marine Corps Museum, and you can see it displayed in Gallery 13. And there it is there. The unsettled Middle East. So in 1973, Syria, Hafez al-Assad, supported by the Soviet Union, starts the Yom Kippur War along with Egypt, but Israel defeats both. This is another example of a proxy war. 1979, Shia Muslims overthrow the U.S.-aligned Iranian Shah. 52 U.S. diplomats and Marines are held hostage for 440 days at the U.S. Embassy. Again in 1979, Saddam Hussein takes control of Iraq. And from 1980 to 1988, Iraq attacks Iran. The war lasts 8 years. It ends in a stalemate with estimates of up to over 200,000 killed in action on each side. And you can see the map there as well. So early in 1984, the war between Iran and Iraq had reached a stalemate. In a bid to cut Iran's oil lifeline, Iraq attacks tankers carrying Iranian oil. Iran retaliates by blockading Basra, Iraq's only seaport, and targeting ships that carry Iraqi oil, including Kuwaiti tankers. In 1986, Kuwait asked the U.S. for help, and in 1987, Operation Earnest Will begins, which begins when Iraqi and Iranian forces increase attacks on merchant ships in the Persian Gulf. Earnest Will reflags Kuwaiti tankers under the U.S. Stars and Stripes, which enables them to be escorted by U.S. Navy warships. 14 April 1988, the USS Samuel B. Roberts, FFG 58, strikes a mine, and 4 days later, April 18th, 1988, U.S. Navy launches Operation Praying Mantis against Iranian targets in the Arabian Gulf. In the one-day operation, U.S. Navy and Marine elements destroy 2 gas-oil separation platforms used by Iranian military forces, sink an Iranian Navy frigate, a missile patrol boat, a handful of small attack craft, cripple another Iranian frigate, and damage an Iranian fighter jet. As part of Operation Praying Mantis, Marine took this Soviet-manufactured 23mm automatic aircraft gun from the gas and oil separation mound. You can see this is a photo of it in the museum here. Unfortunately, 2 Marines died that day when, again, their Cobra attack helicopter crashed in the sea, trying to avoid enemy radar. So, Operation Desert Shield. So, 2nd of August 1990, Iraqi President Saddam Hussein invades neighboring Kuwait with overwhelming forces and subsequently positions assault elements on the Saudi-Kuwait border. 7th of August 1990, President Bush orders U.S. military aircraft and troops to Saudi Arabia as part of a multinational force to defend that country against possible Iraqi invasion. 15 August 1990, the United States Marine Corps announces the commitment of 45,000 troops to the Persian Gulf area. This consists of elements of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force to include units from the 1st Marine Division, 1st Force Service Support Group, 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, and 7th Marine Expeditionary Brigade. Additionally, Maritime Pre-Positioning Ship Squadron Number 2, which has been based at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, moves into the Persian Gulf. This 5-ship squadron contains 7th Marine Expeditionary Brigade's equipment and enough supplies to sustain the 16,500-man force for 30 days. On 14 November 1990, Defense Secretary Richard Cheney authorizes the call-up of over 72,000 National Guard and Reserve troops in support of Operation Desert Shield. This includes over 11,000 Marine reservists. 5 January 1991, Congress votes President Bush the authority to go to war against Iraq. So on 21 January 1990, the first serious ground fighting of Operation Desert Shield breaks out when Iraqi troops mount an attack into Saudi Arabia at 2 points along a 40-mile front. You can see that depicted here on this map. The main Iraqi thrust has its objective Al-Khafji, an evacuated Saudi Arabian port city 6 miles south of the Kuwait-Saudi Arabian border. This incursion is made along the coast by the Iraqi 50th Mechanized Division. 40 kilometers to the east, a diversionary attack by the Iraqi 6th Armored Brigade kicks off first, moving into Marine positions manned by a reconnaissance platoon and 3rd Light Armored Infantry Battalion company comprised of 19 light armored vehicle 25s. It is this combined screening force, U.S. combined screening force, that takes the approaching Iraqi armored brigade under fire, both directly and with called-in airstrikes. They turn it back, but at a deadly price. After receiving permission, one of the light armored vehicle anti-tank variants opens fire at what it believes to be an Iraqi tank. Instead, the missile destroys a friendly LAV-AT. 4 Marines from 1st Light Armored Infantry Battalion are killed when that tow missile hits their vehicle. 7 more Marines are killed and 2 wounded when a Maverick missile fired by an Air Force A-10 malfunctions and hits their LAV-25. A total of 11 Marines die in these 2 cases of fratricide. Additionally, an Air Force AC-130 Spectre gunship is downed by an Iraqi missile, killing the entire crew of 14. So the coalition considers Iraq's possible use of chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons to be a high priority threat. Marines on the ground wear protective gear during missile attacks and continuously while fighting in Kuwait. However, there is no evidence of chemical weapons being used against the coalition, probably because Saddam Hussein fears retaliation. So early 1991, approximately 540,000 troops are in position. 24 February 1991, the ground invasion commences. You can see that indicated here on the map. Coalition forces attack Iraq and Kuwait along a 250-mile front. Originally, the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force commander had planned to have the 1st Marine Division conduct the breach of the 2 minefields, then allow the more powerful 2nd Marine Division to pass through their lines and continue the assault. That plan was changed because of difficulty of passing a division through another division lines in combat. Consequently, the 2 divisions breached through the minefields on line. As General Boomer, the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force commanding general, later explained, there was considerable risk in changing the plan late, but I felt the risk was worth taking or I wouldn't have taken it. I thought we had a much stronger plan with 2 division attack than we did with 1 division attack with the other division following in trace. We could move much faster, we had that much more ground covered, and we were going to kill that many more Iraqis. So the air campaign will probably not destroy the bulk of the forces defending the obstacle belts. Therefore, a deception is needed to keep the Iraqis guessing where the assaults would occur. One of the deception campaigns was staging an amphibious feint off the coast of Kuwait. This froze 6 Iraqi division and over 80,000 Iraqis on that as well. So General James Myatt, commander of 1st Marine Division, recalled, "I think we can't dismiss is the level of effort put into the defenses along the beaches by the Iraqis. Probably 40 to 50% of the Iraqi artillery pieces were pointed to the east in defense of this perceived real threat, an attack from the Gulf. There were literally hundreds of anti-aircraft weapon systems laid in direct fire mode from Saudi Arabia all the way up the coast above Kuwait City to defend against the amphibious threat. I think the amphibious feint saved a lot of Marine lives." So during the air war, referred to as shock and awe, Marine aircraft from 40 squadrons flew more than 18,000 sorties during Operation Desert Storm. The Marine aircraft patrol areas, called kill boxes inside Kuwait, looked at destroying thousands of vehicles, artillery, and emplacements in front of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. You see an example of a kill box here. February 1991, the full might of Marine air power directly supports Marine forces during the 100-hour ground war. Marine transport helicopters moved men and supplies, while helicopter gunships helped break up enemy counterattacks. Air wing losses during this period were 8 Marine aviators killed, 5 captured, and 14 aircraft destroyed by enemy fire. So 23rd February 1991, more than 540,000 coalition ground troops from over 30 countries stand along a 300-mile line and cross into Kuwait, into Iraq. Ahead wait more than 40 divisions of battle-tested Iraqis. 2 Marine columns, as previously noted, moved swiftly through minefields, their objective being the airfield at Kuwait City. By 27 February 1991, in the final act of Operation Desert Storm, the largest coalition ground force since World War II drives the Iraqi army out of Kuwait in 4 days. During this period, the U.S. Marine Corps provides Arabic foreign area officers and air-naval gunfire liaison teams to coalition forces. So 21 January 1991, this M198 howitzer fires the first rounds in support of Operation Desert Storm ground campaign as part of Battery F, 2nd Battalion, 12th Marines. The crew has named this gun Damn Yankees. In 1991, the museum received this artifact, agreeing to keep it in working order in case it is needed again. Well, 2 years later, it was recalled to active service and returned to the museum in 2009 when the M198 howitzer was replaced by the more modern, the M777A2 howitzer. It is currently displayed to its original mechanical configuration. And here you see it in the museum in the original shape that it was in 1991. And that'll give you an idea of, a good part of the museum, Gallery 13. Operation Desert Storm is the only major campaign in which the U.S. uses M60A1 tanks in combat. The tank has passive infrared sights for better accuracy at night, and explosive reactive armor, you can see that on outside of the tank there, to limit damage from incoming projectiles. The Marine Corps has only begun transition from the older M60 to the more modern M1A1 Abrams tank immediately before Operation Desert Shield. 2nd Tank Battalion received some new Abrams tanks in time for Operation Desert Storm, and 2 reserve companies from 4th Tank Battalion received a crash course in the new tank as well. So tankers usually name their tanks, okay? So this crew gives this tank the name of Genesis. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has everything to do with the rock group and the lead singer, Phil Collins. This tank is the first tank that over the berm into Kuwait. So 28 February 1991, a ceasefire is declared. March, April 1991, over 500,000 Kurdish refugees seek sanctuary in the mountains of the Iraq-Turkey border. Later that month, April 1991, the U.S. launches Operation Provide Comfort in response to Saddam's brutal repression of the Kurds. The 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit delivers humanitarian supplies and constructs refugee camps during this period. Additionally, no-fly zones are established and enforced both in northern and southern Iraq from 1991 to 2003. So 9 November 1989, the Berlin falls and the Soviet empire is in decline. The Soviets' withdrawal from Afghanistan begins 15 May 1998 and finishes on 27 February 1991. 31 December 1991, USSR ends. This 44-year-long Cold War is over, but a new era of peace never materialized. We thought this was the end of global conflict. Instead of a bipolar world, ended up as a multipolar world. And the Marines were extremely busy in the decades of the 1990s. So every time and place noted in this photo, you can see where we're there. So 1991 to 2001, the world feels the aftershocks of the Soviet Union's demise. The Marines are sent to over 100 operations in Asia, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and the Caribbean. And it's one of our highest rate of deployment ever during this decade. No matter what they're asked to do, Marines prove repeatedly how quickly they can react to world events and how well they can adapt. So again, the Marines have been to Haiti multiple times in our history, 1920s and 1930s. 1994, you see example here. 2010, earthquake response, and then most recently last year, 2024, where we reinforced our U.S. Embassy. So this is a part of the museum here that represents Marines in Cape Haitian. So in 1991, Haitian President Aristide is overthrown in a palace coup. September 1994, the UN sanctions a U.S.-led joint task force composed of 20 nations. On September 20th, Marines of Special Purpose Marine Air Ground Task Force Caribbean land at both Port-au-Prince and Cape Haitian in Operation Uphold Democracy. Again, this is an example of three-block war concept. We thought Marines were going into combat. Once landed, though, we shifted immediately to peacekeeping operations and rapidly transitioned to humanitarian assistance. So I'm going to walk you through Marine operations in various regions during the 1990s. This is an example of what you would see there. And this, when you come to the museum, you can go to these various regions and it's interactive. You can push on whatever you want to touch and whatever you want on that as well. So Marines in the Pacific. Marines have responded to dozens of crises across the Pacific since 1985. These include response to typhoons in Bangladesh and the Philippines, a massive tsunami in Indonesia and Thailand, and a devastating earthquake and nuclear disaster in Japan. And you can see an example of here how we're doing humanitarian assistance in several of those. Marines have conducted a variety of operations in Somalia and in Africa when the country collapsed into civil war. So several operations in Somalia. August, December 1992, Operation Provide Relief. The Marines assisted the provision of humanitarian assistance to the Somalis. August, December 1992. December 1992 to May 1993, Operation Restore Hope. The goal was to establish a secure environment for humanitarian relief ops. And then finally, 2 years later, January, March 1995, Operation United Shield, which U.S. covering force provided security for the final UN forced withdrawal from Somalia. In 1998, Marines responded to terrorist bombings at the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. So Marines in the Middle East, you already mentioned this, but from April to July 1991, Turkey and Iraq. Again, a Marine Expeditionary Unit coordinated multinational relief efforts to establish refugee camps and provide food and security to thousands of Kurds during Operation Provide Comfort. September 1999 in Turkey, 26 Marine Expeditionary Unit provided relief and medical assistance after a massive earthquake struck Turkey. Marines in Europe, the U.S. focused on deterring a potential Soviet invasion of Europe through the 1980s as a member of NATO. This included Norway and Turkey, as sea-based Marines were particularly well suited to respond quickly to a Soviet attack in these areas. Marines regularly trained and continued to train in Norway. Marines also enforced a no-fly zone and conducted other air operations in Bosnia-Herzegovina. They also flew in NATO air operations against Serbia to drive its forces out of Kosovo. 1995, Marines of the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit served as peacekeepers and provided humanitarian assistance to displaced persons in Kosovo following the Serbian withdrawal. Marines in the Western Hemisphere, Marine Air Ground Team demonstrated its unique capabilities to perform these missions and crises across the Western Hemisphere. These included responding to environmental disaster in Alaska, humanitarian peacekeeping operations in Haiti, as already related, and then in 1989, the U.S. ouster of Noriega in Panama in Operation Just Cause. The Marines helped secure the Western Hemisphere through flexible response to crises at home and abroad. The amphibious assault vehicle is the workhorse that has moved Marines and their equipment from ship to shore and dates back to the 1970s. You can see an example of it here. It is a direct descendant of the World War II era tracked landing vehicle tank, LVT. And as an improved amphibious assault vehicle, the AAV-7, pictured here again, enabled Marines to conduct amphibious operations more effectively in every climb and place. From carrying troops and gear to firing mine-clearing charges to transporting the wounded, the armored amphibious assault vehicle is one of the Corps' most versatile vehicles. Primarily used to transport Marines or cargo from ship to shore, it can also be used for patrols, convoys, and checkpoints. It is currently being replaced by the amphibious combat vehicle, a wheeled rather than tracked vehicle. Full replacement is expected by late 2027. I like to use this example here of military support to civilian authorities. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, The 4th Amphibious Assault Battalion, the Reserve Battalion, AAV Battalion, rescued people from the streets of New Orleans and provided support to civilian authorities as it. Numerous other examples of military support to civilian authorities. Marines continue to provide support in California for brush fires. We provided support in the late 1990s to the Los Angeles Police Department. And again, most recently in Western North Carolina, you saw the U.S. Army providing support from the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne as well on that. Marine ships detachments were valuable to the Navy during the 19th and 20th centuries. They performed duties as landing parties, gun crews, ceremonial formations, and provided security aboard Navy capital ships. They also provided ships a way to project combat power ashore for limited operations. During the Cold War, a ship's Marine detachment primarily shifted to guarding nuclear weapons. Navy Master-at-Arms assumed all shipboard security duties when the Marine shipboard detachments were discontinued in January 1998. However, though, the Marines are still on Navy ships. As a member of America's Quick Response Force, a Marine can expect to be deployed for 6 months of the year aboard a ship. Here is pictured the USS Shreveport LPD-12. After World War II, Marine battalion landing teams have been deployed on amphibious ships for months on end around the globe to protect U.S. interests. They are the nation's forward deployed force in readiness. These Marine expeditionary units, special operations capable, have carried out missions as the President may direct. This berthing area was extracted from the now decommissioned USS Shreveport LPD-12. And you can see it when you visit Gallery 13. And then finally, we're linking Gallery 13, forward deployed 1980s and 1990s, to Gallery 14, the newest gallery there, Afghanistan, Iraq. So Iraq is a clear link. The first is Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. The second is the no-fly enforcement between 1991 and 2003. The third link is the drive up to Baghdad and the fall of Saddam's regime in the spring of 2003, covered in Gallery 14. And the fourth is the insurgency, which begins later in 2003 and which is over by the time the U.S. exits in 2010. Again, you can see that in Gallery 14. The more subtle but very meaningful link to Afghanistan is Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Because Saudi Arabia was used as a base of operations for both Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and the following no-fly enforcement, bin Laden could motivate Al-Qaeda by claiming the U.S. had occupied the Muslim Holy Land. He used this to drive Al-Qaeda attacks on the U.S. operating out of Afghanistan. So you can see a clear linkage between the gallery I just provided you a review of and Gallery 14 on that as well. So I hope I provided you an overview on Gallery 13, 1980s and 1990s as well on that. So with that, I will take whatever questions you have.
And you are so efficient that at the present time, I do not have any questions for you, but sometimes they come in at the last minute. So we'll give it a couple of seconds and see what comes in.
Kevin, I have a question. If people have groups, how do they tell you in advance that they're coming in rather than just showing up?
You have groups there? Well, you can do it too. You can go directly to the museum website, or if there's a different group or form, you can go through the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. But you can go to either one of those websites and let somebody know you're coming as well on that. So usually the more, how should I put this? Well, there's special groups that come to the Heritage Foundation, and then but if you guys want to do that as well, you can hopefully in advance. And I think what would be helpful is how much time do you have? What do you want to get out of it? If you just want to hear Marine Corps history, that's certain as well on that. And then you may want to indicate if you plan to have lunch here and on that. But I think those are the key elements that we would need to hear and see with any of the groups visiting the museum.
And how many days of advance notice is typical?
Well, we'd like more than a week,
Okay.
a month or so. But we can usually, unless it's a very large group, we can usually handle a couple of days in advance.
Okay.
And on that.
And I have the website address as being usmcmuseum.com. Is that correct?
We'll double check that for you, but I believe so.
I still have no questions, but I do have a number of comments about how excellent this presentation was. So we do thank you for that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if whatever question you have, if I don't know the answer, I'm probably going to make it up. That's a joke.
No, it's a good presentation.
Okay.
And I'm hearing that is the correct website, usmcmuseum.com. And I will put that in the chat box.
Okay. Well, again, people on this call here, whether you're in the local area and you haven't been here, or you can, again, even if you've been here 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I mean, there's something new to see. And then if you're anybody from outside the area, if you're traveling in here, this may be something you want to see along with it, because this area is really rich in American history. You've got all the museums up in Washington. You have the U.S. Army Museum 60 miles north of here. You have all Civil War, battles were fought here. Down in Yorktown, you have Revolutionary. So it's an area rich in American history. So, we get several school groups coming through and they visit all those types of places. So, but again, I'd highly recommend that, if you want to make this a stop, that you certainly do that.
So Trudy, I'll get started then.
Yep, I would say let's go ahead and wrap it up. But
Okay.
I'm getting lots of comments saying excellent and thank you.
Yeah. So before I start my the parting words, I do want to encourage people to come to the museum. It's amazing, and they have great docents there. And besides, as you're seeing the screen with Kevin there, as you enter the museum, to the left of it is like a amazing, beautiful trail with different parts of the museum. I'm sorry, with the Marine Corps history. And then you end up like on a small hill with a chapel, and it is amazing. So always like to acknowledge that as well. But Kevin, on behalf of ARP Virginia, I'd like to thank the Marine Corps. Madeline was in the background. I want to thank her and really sharing your valuable time and knowledge with us this afternoon. This is really important for some folks who cannot travel or perhaps disabled. They can't go, and we love this virtual tour. And that's why we love having you guys. But we'd love to get your feedback on today's program and ideas for future programs. So you'll be receiving a follow-up email with a link to a survey. Trudy will do that. So next week, we will be back on the air Tuesday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. And it's going to be celebrating the history of women in the military. It's a virtual tour of the Women's Museum that is located adjacent to the Arlington Cemetery. So in the chat box, you'll see a link to register. Is that right, Trudy, for next week's program?
It is there, or you can go to aarp.org/Tuesday Explorers.
All righty. And yeah, and it's posted already on there, like my great co-host always does. So until next time, we encourage you to stay curious. And again, our sincere thanks to the Marine Corps. See you guys later. Thank you so much.